The Rosetta Stone was carved in 196 BCE. It was found by French soldiers in Rosetta, Egypt. It was written by priests who were honoring the pharaoh. Written in Greek and Egyptian, the Rosetta Stone was deciphered by Jean-François Champollion in 1822. Since he could read Greek and Coptic, he translated and compared it with Egyptian, which was similar. Investigating, we learned more about the Egyptian language.
Hieroglyphs were created before 3000 BCE. They were a form of writing simulated by early Sumerian writing, which was very similar. In 1000 BCE, Phoenicians invented the first alphabet from Egyptian hieroglyphs. The writing eventually became an alphabet where letters meant different sounds. Pictures were put together to equal writing, and each character represented a common object. Sometimes, symbols were put together to make more complex thoughts. Each picture acted like a puzzle. There were many pieces to a sentence. For example, a picture of an eye would be the word I. A heart would be used for love, and the letter U could be used as the word you.
Their paper was called papyrus, which was made from reed plant. The earliest books were papyrus pasted and religious. Only until the Middle Kingdom the first fiction work was made. Scribes were considered important because few people could read or write. Egyptians invented the calendar 6,248 years ago. Counting the days between the arrivals of the Nile flood, they studied the sun, moon, and stars to learn when to expect the spring planting seasons. They realized that 1 year equals 365 days, and after that they added months.
The Egyptians were based near the Nile River, and just like any river, the Nile would flood. When it flooded, it washes away any land boundary markings. Because of this, Egyptians needed a way to measure the boundaries. Therefore, they made geometry. Later on, they invented addition, subtraction, and division, but not multiplication, except by adding methods. They also invented the areas of different shapes.
Chinese skills advanced in 17,000 BCE to 1027 BCE, which was during the Shang period. One of the main advances was in writing. In the beginning, they wrote on animal bones and tortoise shells. They asked yes or no questions to their gods. Some of the questions were, what to sacrifice to the spirits, good days for important journeys, good time for an army to attack, harvests or weather times, good times to go hunting or fishing. They told them about their enemies' misdeeds so that they could punish them. They also told them about murderers and people taken as prisoners. They heated the bones, which produced cracks. These cracks were interpreted into answers to the questions from the gods. After a long period of writing on bones, they advanced into writing on bamboo or wood. This was much easier since it was softer to carve. Over the years, their symbols had changed too. They had now come up with about 2,000 symbols. Pictures were used to express words, and they were combined to express more complex thoughts. This is the story of how the bones came into being. In 1899, a man called Wang Yirong became ill with malaria. His doctors sent to the local apothecary in Beijing for the best-known treatment of malaria, ground-up dragon bones. When the dragon bones arrived, Wang Yirong was very surprised by what he received. The dragon bones were not ground up as usual. When he examined the bones more closely, he noticed that something was written on them. He thought the symbols and markings on the bones were early forms of writing. He bought as many unground dragon bones from the apothecary as possible. Other people learned about their discovery, and a lot of interests and questions came up. The bone dealers tried to keep the bones' place of origin secret as long as possible. In 1908, philologist Luo Zhenqi found out the source of the bones from a dealer in Anyang. He went to Anyang and found thousands of bones buried in pits. He learned that the bones were dug up by people plowing the land. They sold them to apothecaries in cities. When they found bones with writing, they would scrape the symbols off because they thought people wouldn't believe that they were dragon bones if they had writing. Luo Zhenqi discovered that they were really oxen shoulder blades, or turtle plastrons. Most had writing and hollows on them. The kings of ancient China predicted the future with them. Pits were bored into the bones. A diviner would ask yes or no questions on behalf of the king about things like their harvest. Heat was then applied to the bone, making it crack. Depending on what side the bone was cracked, the diviner would know if the answer to the question was yes or no. The answers to the question and the data were then written on the bone. Historians and archaeologists gathered lots of useful information from the oracle bones. They discovered the names of nearly all the Shang kings. They also found out what objects were important to the kings. The trade in dragon bones for the farmers in Anient was now over. However, there was a great deal in interest in collecting the oracle bones. The farmers who once worried that the writing on the bones would make them difficult to sell, then learned that the bones were much more valuable with writing on.
The Indus Valley Civilization had a language for sure, but people still do not know how to read it. Even though we have not been able to read it, we still know a lot about it. The people who lived in Indus Valley created stamp seals by using sticks and writing on pieces of clay. The most popular animal that was found on the seals was a bull. Most seals had inscriptions along the top. When the seals were found, they were in good condition and were legible. The average amount of words on one seal is 5, but the most that has been found is 26. The language is believed to have been spoken for several hundred years.
The Sumerians, the people of Mesopotamia, wrote in cuneiform, which is the first known type of writing. It was invented around 8000 BC, about 10,000 years ago. The word cuneiform means wedge-shaped. Scholars used a reed stylus or pointed stick, which is where the name cuneiform comes from. The symbols had wedges because the scribes used styluses with a square point. Because paper and pens had not been invented yet, styluses helped make impressions on soft bricks and tablet. Around 3100 BC, they were just drawings of the object being described. By 600 BC, they resembled groups of small triangles and lines. Mesopotamian scribes used to write about subjects like trade, astronomy, daily life, and literature. Barley was one of the characters that changed most. It started out as a few simple lines. After a while, the scribes began to use square-tipped styluses. Then they added more grain. For some reason, they turned it sideways. After that, it merely became a few triangles. The Sumerians were very skilled mathematicians. They discovered that a circle has 360 degrees. They also divided hours into 60 minutes and minutes into 60 seconds. Their number system was called sexagesimal. Digits up to 10 look like capital Ys, and numbers up to 5 tens look like arrows. Numbers more than 59 were represented by combinations of these numbers in the place value system. There was no symbol for zero, although later the Babylonians used a dot if the zero was in a medial position. The Sumerians, or more specifically Hammurabi, is known for modifying the Sumerian code of laws and writing it. It is the first known written code of laws. It extended the legal system developed by the Sumerians. The Sumerians also used tokens as money since 9000 BC.
Writing was very important for a good civilization. It was used to record information such as laws and other important documents.
It was also used for calendars, which was necessary because farmers needed to know when to plant and harvest their crops.
They used writing on tablets and seals as a sign of ownership and wealth. They wrote books and diaries, which contain much of the information we know about these civilizations now.
Math and counting was also very important in these civilizations. If they had not invented math, we would not be using it today.
They invented the calendar, addition, subtraction, division, geometry, and area of shape. They used math the most when farming to mark the land.